This is the side of operations people don't see. It's not just about the end result. It's early mornings, late nights, tough conversations, and decisions that don't have easy answers. It's what it actually takes to build something that lasts. Hosted by Coach Kent and Amy, this is where behind-the-scenes operations meets practical ownership, where we talk about the systems, the standards, the mistakes, and the lessons behind being entrepreneurs. No fluff, no highlight reel, just the work behind the work. This is Iron Ops.
What's up and welcome to Iron Operations. I'm Amy Tipper, one of your hosts, and in case you haven't noticed, there is about 3 hours of content of recap of the 2026 Tournament Capital Classic up now on our podcast. Now, we recorded this on the Monday following the event, and we reviewed it back and realized that the sound quality was just a little bit muffled. So we went ahead, we did a re-record, but this also just serves more as the quick summary for the event. It's the down and dirty recap, mostly just of each events, but also the overall vision for the event, and mostly just what Kent shares with some of his behind-the-scenes overview knowledge. All the details and some other behind-the-scenes stuff are still in the previous 2 episodes, so if you want some more of that, you can go check them out. This will be a great place to just give that overall summary. So let's get right into it. Here's a high-level overview of the 2026 Tournament Capital Classic that just wrapped up here in Kamloops. I hope you like it. It was a great record. There's tons of valuable information, and you'll definitely want to be making some notes after this one. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Iron Operations. We're back in full swing and we're coming off a couple days now. It's Wednesday after the Tournament Capital Classic for 2026. We did a full deep dive and recorded about 3 hours of content on the Monday following the event. But as anyone would be, a little bit tired, a little bit disorganized, a little bit messy, but there's actually some fantastic content in there. And so if you're curious, some behind the scenes or full recap, we go through 2021 to 2025, some of the legacy behind the scenes of what made the Tournament Capital Classic. And then we also went into a full recap of 2026. So if you're really curious and interested about those details, it's a super great episode. But we wanted to come on and do a little bit more of a condensed kind of bite-sized form of a recap. And then also just check in a few days after when everything's working good. We've got our sound quality up and all that, which will keep going forward. But so Kent, how are we doing 3 days after? What are some more post-event thoughts?
I don't know if I have more. I think I articulated them okay, but part of my fog of war brain was I didn't calibrate my microphone properly. And I listened to some of what we were saying, and I'm like, oh man, there's good stuff in here, but some of it gets a little bit muffled, enhanced by my fatigued voice. And at certain points when I'm getting excited, I talk a little bit too fast, which is common, but I just wanted it to be a nice listen before we push that out, or at least accompany this as a nice, bit more clear vision of painting what went into the event. So we'll go over the event just from what happened on the weekend. For context, it's Wednesday. So I've caught up my sleep a little bit, but I can show you my Whoop data from the week leading up. Drained. And between the lack of sleep, even for my standards, and the just output of work, because there's times where I'm standing still, in monitor zone. But on Friday during setup, my Whoop detected 6 powerlifting workouts, from the setup in the morning. So 2026 Tournament Capital Classic, every year, 3 weeks out or so, I'm like, fuck this. This is the last event I'm doing, maybe. And then more recently, I'm like, well, I'm just saying this probably right now because I know going into the event, it's usually quite good. And I tricked myself into being like, yeah, that was good. People had fun. Look at how happy they are with the experience. Do it again next year. And I painted myself into a corner with a lot of these purchases I've made, like the rig and things like that, to, amortize that cost over the couple of years to justify the initial cost to make it up. You have to utilize it for a few years, or else it's a complete waste. But as it's grown and the layout has evolved and my ability and vision have evolved, even though I think I've been actually usually pretty good at that, implementing a vision that I have, it's pretty cool what it turned into. And recency bias alert, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I think that was the best event that I've run in just terms of creativity, logistics, vision, and utilization of the space. And I think I nailed the programming too.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the workout flow, races, and that athlete experience race, and, checkboxing the gambit of certain kind of CrossFit like fitness skills that you want to do over the course of a day or two. Not that it can be as complete as like a CrossFit Games 20 event, the fittest person in fittest pair in BC or whatever. That's not what I'm doing. But I do like to have the events balance between, mixed modal and fitness, aerobically, strength, engine, skill set, but also have it balanced between all the divisions. So there's not convoluted differences from the top division or to the bottom division in terms of complexity. And so I put a lot of thought into that, and trial and error over all of my events over the years. There's things you can be very aware of. And in particular, creating standards for intermediate, for example, have been like a very tricky task to hit the bullseye on what I want. And I've told you this before and how important the finish line is to me.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the design, is that I want most of the teams to finish. If the teams are properly in the division, like they chose the division and they belong in there, as I refer to them as like avatars. So there's avatars in my gym that I reverse engineer on who I think should be in there to give me a good idea on what the abilities are. And that helps when I'm testing workouts in classes. Sometimes I'm a little obvious about it. And sometimes I put pieces of things in there or have specific people, like a master's intermediate avatar that I know they're perfect for that category. A handstand push-up standard, for example, see where that's at. And this is my opinion. So I'll preface all of these things that I'm about to say when we go over some programming insights, that I have my opinion on what I want things to feel and look like for the people that attend my events, primarily my members. That's who I make these events for. And we have a solid chunk of the athletes in the event. And I'm pumped that people from out of town come. But really, the true value lies for me in serving my people. And I'm glad people can link onto that too from out of town. So there are other programmers, events that want to beat down their competitors, and they think that's a fun test. I don't think that's wrong. It'd be like arguing your favorite color is yellow. Legit. I don't really have a favorite color because my favorite color
Black?
is silver and or black. And Carly claims that's not a color, and I can't say
Right.
that, which I always say, like, my truck is black. So when people ask me what color my truck is, do I say, well, it's not a color? So it's just an opinion thing. There'd be no point in like me and you arguing what's better, silver or yellow. It's just we like the different things better. So when people nitpick programming, if they have a good lens of programming of like, well, I program this way, it's not wrong or right on if we do it differently and what the expression is. Because I can think of another local event that my members have done, and I personally think like it's a little bit of like a smash fest. And I'm not really into doing that. And I don't think you need to do that to test and give people that experience. But if people like it and they like programming it and it goes well, it's still a great way to do it.
Well, and we talked a little bit about, maybe that's even evolved a little bit over time, or you've looked at some that you've programmed, some events you've programmed, and if it has gone a little bit too beyond that threshold, some people like it, but as overall, maybe it does impact that athlete experience a little bit. And you're like, man, I'd rather people have fun. I'd rather have them have a great experience than just like be pulverized. So it's maybe kind of shifted and changed over the years, but this is like where the event is at now and what your preference is and all that, right?
Yeah. And and just on what I'm going for. Because in my opinion, the rookie mistake is to, when you're running an event, you can think like, okay, these people are CrossFit people. They train really intensely and do crazy stuff. They want to be pulverized over the course of the weekend, which for the most part, I don't think is true, but maybe there's different expressions of that, and that's fine. And I think there are some, like an event or a workout in the course of the weekend that can be pulverizing, but the bulk of your movements are like that, or your workouts are like that. It's a tough sell. Like, then let's be real. All of our participants in my event are local variants of beer league athletes. And there's some very high level beer league athletes. And I don't mean beer league in a demeaning way, but there's no professionals there that are making a good living or really a living at all performing and training at CrossFit events. Like, unless Emily Rolfe and Brent showed up, even Brent's retired, but they're elite and they're like literally making a living off of it. But the rest of us are all just locals, even though people might have some aspirations. And even with that said, I don't think a weekend to test how fit you are in terms of like a CrossFit definition of fitness needs to be a pulverizing test. It can be a very fun expression with appropriate volume and movements in each division, and flow and length and complement each other to make things interesting. So that's what I've really been trying to have the lens on for my own definition of that. By looking at other things, like you definitely can find other workouts and be inspired by them to like use your own version of it, but also looking back on what I've done. So in that last episode, or whatever, one of the last two that we are partially re-recording, the 2023, I kind of pigeonholed myself. Well, I didn't pigeonhole it. My anxiety over what I could do in the TCC without getting in trouble, which is another story that's in that episode. I had to kind of change my movement pattern and some of the design of the workouts, that it was a little redundant. And there's normally some things I would wanted to have in there, but the fear of the logistics in a new space to utilize like a wall for handstand push-ups on the other side of the building, and not wanting to just totally drop the ball and trying to incorporate that and make it a mess. It was the lesser of two evils to like leave the handstand push-ups out and instead utilize the workout in a different way, because there's only so much time that I would have at the gym to use the pull-up bars and or the ball. And it was tricky to do that all in one day. And then as you learn the facility better, you amp up the level of execution, which I did for 2 years there. And then I still would learn. So when I had to move facilities last year, I was able to add a rig into our hockey arena, but that was brand new space in there, brand new utilization of a rig inside of the arena rather than just at the gym. There's been times, even like the first gauntlet I ever ran, didn't you do that one too?
I don't remember if I was at the first one, but I have been
with Kayla though, right? Weren't you? I just remember the first workout was like 5 minutes synchro of like wall balls and wall walks, ascending reps. And well, it's just 5 minutes, but like that's a brutal combo, right? To go synchro. It's really just an individual output on whoever the slower person is for the full 5 minutes. And there's more fun ways, because that doesn't really have any strategy in it either, which I'll discuss briefly in some of this stuff and in detail in those last recordings. I think there's more of that fitness output. And if you look at some of these workouts that we did, it's not like they're a joke. And naively, a lot of people will look at class workouts sometimes and be like, oh, that's easy. Like, it's easy to do and finish, but is it easy to do quickly? Like, you can say, oh, a 500-meter row, and that's your test or workout, which would be lame for, depending on what it was coupled with. It could be creative in a competition setting or in a class. Oh, that's easy. I'm like, it's easy to do. Is it easy to go like 117 at 500-meter row? No. Like,
yeah, you'd be dead.
Well, there's just a serious amount of fitness and strength and power output in order to do that. So even when the volume's not high, like in our event for this year, there wasn't like an insane amount of bar muscle ups. There was like 48 total over 3 sets, which split. So you're doing like 24 each in 15 minutes. It's enough that if you're fast and really good at them, you don't have to take breaks. Your skill, regardless of if your volume capacity is way higher than that, you get rewarded for that ability, but you don't need to put like 75 bar muscle ups on a workout at that level to separate people that are good at bar muscle ups and not. And there's something to be said. And this is, you can appreciate this, like when you're more of a sprint athlete as a swimmer or something, it's maybe easier in the way that doesn't hurt like your aerobic or glycolytic system as much, but it's not easier to do. It would be like saying, yeah, bench press is easy. Yeah, bench pressing an empty bar is easy, but can you bench press 300? It's not that easy. So I think that kind of lens has helped guide me to make workouts that are challenging, because they're challenging to do quickly rather than just doing AMRAPs. And because AMRAPs also take away the finish line. And I talked about this last time. So one workout, I'm like, oh, I'll never do that again. The year that you came, there was like alternating AMRAPs of pistol squats and deadlifts or something. And the problem with an AMRAP, there's inevitable times, even still, I would use an AMRAP at times, or variations of like a max reps and remainder, depending on how much time you have. It's a nice separator. But AMRAPs in certain lenses, it penalizes the people that are really good at the workout because they don't know what the other scores are around them unless they're really savvy and going last, but also aware of the rest of the heat. If you're laying a beat down in an AMRAP and you do like 6 extra rounds of whatever it is, the volume that you output in that day is useless, and it just like would take away from your output later in the workout, and you get penalized physically from crushing. And so that's just some context on some design on things I've done in the past, which I went into detail before on this trial and error of the programming insight on like, I really want to create this partner teamwork experience, and the finish line when the workouts are 4 times. So all the workouts this year were 4 time other than the lift workout, which I think had a really cool twist to it. When you cross the finish line, if you competed this weekend or if you've done these before, I watch for it intentionally. It doesn't matter what place you are. Like it feels good if you get a heat win or something and you're across the line first on that red mat that we put out there. But when you're done, you give your teammate a hug or a high five and you feel accomplished when you get across the finish line. As a CrossFit person, you kind of get blinded by all the class formats we do. And AMRAPs are definitely a normal part of that training methodology, but I don't think it's a great output for a race and experience methodology. There's just that high five and that feeling because you hopefully, depending on the workout, you practice them and discuss them and you have an idea what your time should be. So if you get that finish line, there's that sense of accomplishment. And the less you can just be stranded out during a time cap, the better, which our analogy that we spoke about was if we were doing a 200 meter freestyle and at that 2-minute time cap and you get to 190 meter mark and the horn goes, you got to stop and slowly swim out the side of the pool. How lame would that be? Yeah.
Yeah. So we went through pretty much each event in quite detail in the last episode. So I guess maybe just some of your favorite parts from this year and what you thought went really well. We talked a lot about some of those epic athlete experience things that you've added in. So those are in pretty good detail in those other episodes. Maybe if you just want to go over high level top 3 favorite events or favorite parts of the weekend, if that was an event or if that was something that just went really well. And then people can listen more about it in detail in the next few.
With just make sure you're in a nice quiet environment so you can get through my muffled microphone. All right, let me just share my screen then. Okay, just some context. So if you're ever looking at planning an event, so this is usually where I start on, sometimes it's timeline. So I have a template here if it's 11 minutes, how many hours and minutes each heat makes. And then just a rough draft of times and ideas. Mm-hmm. You really have to reverse engineer your timeline before you really start making workouts. Or if there's one workout you're really into and you have this really good idea, you can kind of use that as a tent pole of your entire weekend or a pillar and create that, but make sure the timeline is relatively set. And then you have to build around it depending on what day or session it's on. And then you need to also build around the movement patterns that it checks the box on. So when you're having other ideas, you're not being overly redundant. So you're not doing front squats a bunch of times and then thrusters and wall balls in 3 different workouts. It would be a pretty redundant movement pattern or skill. either to reward the same thing or just pulverize the same amount of muscles to get you sore. One thing I'm trying to be aware of, hopefully forever, is not have a high volume squat or lunge day on the Friday, the first day, because I don't want people waking up really sore and moving slowly on the second day. And like high volume squatting, I think is the most or the biggest factor that would doing that. If you're doing big wall ball sets, a synchro or something. So we did squat cleans on the Friday night, but you're doing 6 heavy reps total. It's not really something that creates a lot of DOMs. And then WODs, typically I'll type them out in like an Excel sheet with all the different divisions, depending on how much detail I need to put in each one before I start typing them up into competition corner or notes. And I often, if I have some ideas that I'm like just daydreaming of at the gym or driving, I'll give myself a voice note in Google and then have it saved in my note files, things like that. This is typically my base on moving things over that I've evolved on every year. So I can kind of template it out. I used actually ChatGPT this year to help with my equipment changes. So that was helpful too. Like what equipment we had to move down and what I could leave at the gym, how much barbells I had to have in each lane. Like when we're changing barbells heat by heat for the equipment people, when the barbells go up in snatch weight by 10 to 20 pounds, depending on the division. Had it, and then I made a typo. It caught it. Carly went through it to make sure ChatGPT wasn't doing weird AI shit. And then I saved it once it was finally done with each division, each weight. And then was able to generate an image for the equipment guys to have like the 45s, the 25s, the 5s, or the 15s and the 5s for each weight in each division and each gender, which is a very nice reference sheet that you could create on your own. But the time it takes to do that, add little graphics of each plate, AI can be a nice tool for that kind of thing. And you shouldn't fully rely on it, but when you can generate images as quickly as you can, it's a nice reference for that. Okay, I'll go over the workouts relatively quickly, and then a few things I was really impressed with as it flowed. Let's go off our website here. There might have been a few small changes that I put in competition corner. I think this just reads a little bit better. There we go. Ring theory. This was, I can't remember in the order that I released it. I know I had that clean workout done early because that was motivated off of the Wadapalooza Miami workout that I saw. They had an echo bike buy-in and then a clean and jerk, I think, which they ended up changing on the day out because of the rain. But I loved that workout. I'll get to that quickly in a second. So I can't remember the order that I put this up, but this took a lot of thought. And I think this ring theory workout was one of the best workouts that I've ever made, not overall necessarily, but in terms of painting teams into a corner, forcing them to discuss how they're going to attack this workout.
What we talked about in the other podcast is just how some of the structure that goes into these ones is making sure that rep scheme is the same, but also making sure it's fair among the time cap, the movement stanzas, everything like that. So with this one being at the gym, you mostly wanted to make sure that you had wall walks and a wall to use and then be able to use the rings on the rig, right? So that was pretty much the design for this workout.
Yeah, the movement patterns for sure I wanted to use a wall. And the rings, I don't have rings for my big rig yet. It's just another thing I don't want to really spend money on. And I really love the intimate gym environment. So previous years, I had done like a back-to-back workout in the gym, either in the morning or last Friday night last year, which is a time saver. But I think this was a better experience doing like the full workout, resetting, and then do full workout too. It extended the time and I had to start earlier than I had originally planned, but I was really happy with how this went. The other thing that you and I discussed was I was akin to like the golf architects, when you design a workout in classes kind of, but in particular a competition, it's similar to a golf architect designing a golf course and where they put the sand traps and the water hazards, how they slope the green, etc. in each hole. So for a workout, it's like as an event organizer, it's this game theory thing I was really into, still am. Some deep diving on the ins and outs in game theory. It's a pretty interesting topic. And it can apply to a lot of aspects of life. There's some famous examples like the prisoner's dilemma and all these other things, but they can be applied to this kind of thing where there's this like collaboration dilemma on the teammates versus me or the event or the workout. And as much as people like to think they're competing against other people, they're not really directly influencing how they do. Maybe briefly psychologically, but realistically, it's not fencing or tennis or martial arts as individual sports with an opponent that you actually contact and affect. This is individual or team workouts you complete independently, and the leaderboard sorts itself out. The idea is that you're gaming this workout like you're gaming it within the constraints of the rules of the movement patterns and how the workout flows to do your absolute best expression of it. So the more you can plan with a teammate, because if you're just doing this workout solo, certainly there would be a strategy on how you pace. All these workouts are you against the event designer and how can you execute. My hope is like that teammates that are really cohesive and talk to each other and communicate, they can close the gap or leapfrog teams that aren't as good at being good communicators. So this was a great expression of that. I was really happy with a lot of the tight finishes on some of these workouts because we had this new floor plan. I hadn't really done this in the gym before. We had exactly like this, even advancing the dumbbells every 10 reps. So there's teams on the dumbbell lines at the same time in the same heat, like moving towards their finish line, which was a box to stand in. And then I made it easy for Ryan to call it out, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The second workout was amazing. This is one of my other things. I hate zeros on lifting events. You get a zero, like if there's only 2 attempts in a workout for your lift and you miss them both and you get a zero, that sucks. You're a local athlete, you get a zero, you feel sad. So I had this thing with the workout where there's a buy-in for the bike that made you tired and incentivizes you to go fast and gamble a little bit, but a 25% penalty in the case that you totally miss your lift in that first window. You still have time to get a score on the board, which for the most part worked out, but there's some people that still missed in the second minute, which that's just bad planning or ego problems, I think, that you refuse to drop enough weight to continue. I love the box energy, that Friday Night Lights standing room only bumping. I really hope you can make it next year. You're coming, right?
Yes, I will be there.
Okay. And I had this, like the walkout music and all these videos designed. It was cool. And that was an epic ending. And part of the reason, as an event organizer perspective, why I like doing the lift at the gym is because there's thousands of pounds you have to take over to a different facility, which is a lot of work. And then you have to have all your weight set up in each lane. And you can imagine all the plates, just a lot of extra movement to do. And I like the clang and bang in the box anyways. We all do. That's why we like doing CrossFit. That was good. Event 3A, 3B was awesome too. I love going outside, which was a cool expression of like going inside and outside. Again, another logistics thing I learned. Last year I had rowers and sandbags and running. This had rowers and box and wall balls and things like that with a run. But the rowers were outside last year because I started earlier in the morning and I wasn't able to get inside the building to a certain time. And it rained. I had to get all these tents out in the morning to cover the rowers and have all these contingencies for the sandbags. Nightmare. So this year, the rowers were all inside at the back door.
Mm-hmm.
And the other logistics things I had to figure out was the gating in and out of the lanes to make sure that each and every distance is even. So something to think about if you're organizing things. And we do this in the gym all the time. So if it's like a Saturday team workout, there's lots of stuff going on. I don't care. I'm not like a leader. I don't give a fuck about our leaderboard. Like I don't check our sugar watt leaderboard to see who is the fastest each day. Like I don't care at all. But some people are into it and they want to see where they rank against other people, and that's totally fine. But my thing is, if you're writing a 200-meter run workout with X amount of rounds, do 200 meters of running. So we have a pylon at the front of the gym. And then if you're in your pull-up bar station, you run out and then you lap around the pylon in front of the gym back to your pull-up station. So otherwise, if you're at the door or the front of the gym in like a 5-round workout, you're gaining 500-600 feet of round trip distance, which I don't care about where you rank on the leaderboard, but you're not really doing the right distance as written. And then if it's a benchmark or something, especially, you can really inflate or deflate your scores for your own testing based on where you stand in the gym. So I'm a stickler about that.
Well, and if it is for scores and for money, heat, and all that stuff, then yeah, you have to make it fair.
Yeah. For a competition, there's like zero excuse on that, right? Like you for 100% need to make sure it's fair. If your rower is slightly more narrow in towards the door, the outside lanes, if it's coming straight through in the narrow end, have a longer path to get from their wall ball spot to the rower, which is why you need to do gating. So you have to like loop around the building. So if you did that workout, that's why you had to run around. So it was the exact same distance for every single person in every single lane, which I think is extremely important. Even in a long workout like that, there could be a 3, 4, 5, 7, 10-second difference in the rankings. And that 100% could be affected just by some naively spaced rowers. So that was fun. And we had this great sprint workout outside, like just there and back, farmer's walk. I think we nailed the good stimulus of a post-event score. Love that. And then event 4, if you look on the leaderboard, there's 3 different scores for it. There's 3 sets. It's a 100-point workout, but it was solo set, combined set. So 25, 25, 50 points. And I love doing that because it creates more leaderboard columns in competition corner to mix things up. And also it reduces the chance of tying overall on the end of the leaderboard at the end of the weekend. Because the likelihood, if you have 9 columns and if you go like first, second, and the other team goes second, first, the likelihood of that happening evenly is less and less likely as you add more things. And then it creates some more strategy with your teammates to talk about like who goes first, who does the solo set second, how much do we split the third set. There's some really good races in there. And what I nailed with the finish line this year, because I knew the layout well, but we had like that left to right grid. You could tell where people were at, and I had everything kind of rebound to these red mats that are like literally red carpets for a finish line feel. And we had like the delineators branded, it looked pretty professional, like the tap. It's not like we have a buzzer timer on them, but essentially you tap the time and your judge records the score to the closest second as we went. So that presentation was cool. And then the final workout, I wouldn't say it was insanely creative. And that's kind of the beauty of things sometimes. If you get too creative, like I've thought of some really cool workouts, but it's a convoluted mess and that I've never actually put in. Because when you started thinking like, okay, like how does this change on all these divisions and all these implements, and how do you judge this and keep track of it, not get people in the way of each other? So this is simple, and this was motivated off the CrossFit Games event 9, the one where it was called Running Isabel. So it's 30 snatches. If you're watching this, all 6 of you, pause this video, go to YouTube, search 2025 CrossFit Games event 9, the men, and watch it. And then you'll see what Jason Hopper does. And it's very, very exciting. So Amy and I and others were at the CrossFit Games last year, and we were like up in the upper deck, right on that finish line level. Super exciting, but it's a very simple workout, just shuttle runs and snatch. But the flying too close to the sun effect of linking snatches together, mostly the individual strategy of that, but there was some teammate strategy in here. If you look at it, the text of it, on who does their back-to-back round, because there's a synchro set bookended on the solo sets. So like Carly, my wife, was helping at the event, of course. We sent her down to like the finish line with her phone to film the finishes, just in case there's some controversy with when the judge looks down at their rep and then looks up at the clock to make sure it was accurate on the touch points. And it was valuable because every heat had like bang, 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 like the competitive heat, for example, the very last heat of the weekend. This is what I dream of happening when I envision this event. And it just went perfectly. It's hilarious. The nice visual of this one was I don't have like the room to have all these space to advance the bar, right? And especially with double barbells, with 2 people going at once. But I planned this intentionally that the workout starts with the synchro sets, alternates singles. So that looks like an AMRAP. It's hard to tell where people are at. But you know, when they go back to their synchro and there's 2 athletes on the platform at the same time facing each other, those people are on their last 6 reps. And then some teams couldn't quite hang on for 6 touch and go by that point, or the second person couldn't. And then they drop it, or they no rep, and then they get their shuffle within a like 15-second window. Very exciting. It was amplified by my other learning that I mentioned, that other thing we recorded. I used to end with like the long chippers at the end of the weekend. And they're great workouts. A few of them are really good, but they're 20-minute heats ish. So 9 heats is like over 3 hours. Whereas this is like at an 8-minute time cap. So if you're these money heats that we do all the intros for, like the WWE style, like walkouts, I had a smoke machine and I did these video things. I'll show it in a second. And I like have that production to it. So the competitive heat, Coast Mountain CrossFit had a Instagram live because the owner was in there, and I think his wife was taking Instagram live so people from the gym could watch. It's a very, very exciting. Like, it wasn't exactly the video that I wanted to do, but I scaled it back because it was so new to me. I didn't figure out that video. I didn't know I had access to that video board until like the Friday during setup. So I had just 24 hours, including running the event and not sleeping, to implement some things on there. Because I even was able to create these graphics that went up on the whiteboard or the screen of the overlay of what the workout was. So if you're sitting in the stands, you remembered how the flow went, which was cool. And it just came down to these crazy finishes. But the energy was good because if you're in that first seat, you only have to wait for like 45 minutes to an hour rather than 3. So you're more likely to stay around. So there's actually a good amount of people in the stands because a lot of them are just athletes from previous heats and maybe their families or friends that are still watching. So there's some like bump in energy because especially when the workout's fast and exciting like that and the finishes are close, it was banging. It was like euphoric to watch as like this person that fantasized about it for months to see it actually go and look like that and have that exciting feel. Because that's the experience I want to deliver. I'm like, there's this older, his name is Jerry. He was in Masters Recreational. He joined our like Legends program. And he does engine a little bit too at the gym. And he joined Masters Recreational. He's like 67. And I saw him at the gym yesterday. I said, good job on the weekend, etc. And he said, man, like that last event, I felt like I was in the UFC coming out of the tunnel there. I'm like, I'm really glad you said that to me because that's exactly what I'm going for. I want you to feel that way in this moment. And that's what I'm trying to create for these people, these lasting memories and feeling like a superstar. And that's why I go above and beyond in details. And even how the branding looks and how things laid out are very precise. I'll never have the budget of Wadapalooza or the CrossFit Games. But the next closest version that I can do as a local person, not to inflate my ego or like, so people like look up to me, how organized things are or anything like that. Like I'm very appreciative of the compliments. And it's not just me. I have a big team of people that are helping me, but ultimately it's my vision. I just very passionately want to deliver a cool experience to these people that sign up for my event and making them feel like they're part of something big, even though it's just a local thing. It can be like this better version of that because I really disagree with the good enough mentality in a lot of aspects of my life and how things can be run in like a smaller city. It like boils my blood thinking about some of the experiences I've had where people are like good enough with like shitty stuff. You can do things the right way without like being absurd or irresponsible about budgets and things. You just got to be smart and let it grow and snowball.
Well, I think just what you said and like what we talked about in the last episode is truly all these details and all this information that goes in behind the scenes and the stuff you're thinking about and the doubts and the stress 3 weeks before, like it truly all is because you're trying to build this insane athlete experience because you've been in a few athlete experiences yourself. I mean, you've been to sports games and things like that, where even as a crowd member, you feel the energy and the excitement. And I think this is just your passion of translating that. Like you want other people to feel that way too. And you know in your brain how to make it happen. And some things were new, like you said, working on some of these videos the Monday prior, we go into more details about that. But even when we recorded last about, the 5 and 6 year athletes who have supported you and you reward them with this like superstar status because to you, they are superstars because they've supported your event for 5-6 years and stuff like that. So I think it's such a cool inside look behind the scenes of how to make an event like this happen.
Yeah. And I'll reiterate, like none of this is by accident. And there's some people that are very aware of the thought that goes into it and the very, very subtle details that are put into this. And some people are taking it for granted isn't the right way to say it. They don't have that lens on like, oh, I didn't think of that. So if you're going to nitpick programming, there's a lot of logistical things that you need to like back your statements up with for me to respect where it's coming from. And at the same time, there's an expression of an opinion and a vision that's specifically important to me, where I want people to have that experience, find the finish line. I don't really like people time capping in an event. There's a handful of times where people are stretching their abilities a little bit, but the percentage of time caps this year was outstanding. In my opinion, it was very, very small, because I want them to get across. So if they get stuck at a skill, there's something they need to work on, but maybe there's some kind of outs that I built in. So because I want them to race and not just stand there. The layout here is like, if you zoom in, depending on where you're sitting, right? Like I invested in this flooring because I had to move facilities, which I bitched about last time. I could do a whole episode on my rage about that. We should do an episode on that so I can just unload. Little things like these delineators here down here, they look pro. And they're just like these plastic things from Uline. And then part of my sponsorship from visual sponsors, because they did some of this other stuff for me previous years, then I kept it. They do some of this stuff for free for me. Like the team signs and stuff I always pay for as part of the event budget, but they help me out with some certain things. And then putting these lower signs across the bottom, it looks kind of professional. The other thing I had to kind of invest in this year, now that I got the rig out of the way, I bought these platforms. They're like puzzle piece. They're very thick and heavy. They are a bitch to move. Now, last year I had them when we did a barbell workout with the guys, girls things. They were turned around 90 degrees and I had to like move the guys off a certain direction and the girls off a certain direction. And we had to like rehearse it to make sure there wasn't going to be, you go the wrong way, they'll clang each other. But it was still like a little tight. And then I had this vision for some of these workouts and these races. So I moved them and staggered them this way. So there's overlap in the lane at first glance by a foot on each end of where the mat is. But really your lane is like your 4-foot section where the skinnier mat is. And they don't make these puzzle piece platforms anymore. So I actually bought 2 4x6 mats per platform. These are just 2 strips of rubber and they push them together. So they have the same footprint as a platform. And then this worked out perfectly for the guy girl barbell to do like, I couldn't do synchro reps without doing that. So that worked out so good. And then this finish line. And then down here is where we have the smoke tunnel. So good. It looks cool. I just love watching it because it was easy to watch the race.
Yeah, you had pulled up this in the other podcast and I said, it looks like a professional like mini CrossFit game setup. It looks sweet.
As people know me, I'm very, very sports obsessed. I've been like that since I was like 7 years old, like watching hockey at first and then football and basketball were my 3 favorites. Going to professional sporting events was always like a fantasy of mine. And the reason I work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, a lot of that's motivated in like, there's times in my life where I couldn't afford to go anywhere or do anything. And I kind of felt like a loser on things I wanted to do, but I just was trapped by lack of income or work. And I'd watch all these sports games on TV and I want to go. And I was still able to go to some, but I just loved going into watching my favorite sports, being in the arena like I grew up in a small town and a small city, these big arenas in the States in certain areas where like I'd see them on TV and be like, what's it like in there? So when I do go to sports games, I always try to be quite early because I love like the pregame production, like the starting lineups before the anthem and things like that, where they do the video board. I just love it. So when I go, I'm like a fly on the wall, and I'm never going to own a stadium, but there's certain like local little things that I can do that are similar. And I've been very computer and tech savvy and media savvy for like a regular person. I'm not formally trained in this stuff, probably because I've had such an obsession over sports my whole life. And really like my work ethic is largely hinged on wanting more out of my life, but building things for people around me too. And I love creating opportunities for others. But my ability to like go to these sports games is like a childhood dream that I realized, which is very cool. So what was the inception for this year? I went to a couple sports games in the LA area with my friend Bodies by Bob. He's a hockey referee and he was refereeing at the LA area. His real name is Bobby Joe, but most people know him as Bodies. Went to Anaheim Ducks hockey, and they have a sick intro. So the techno song that I was actually using as an entry song was It's from the movie John Wick, I think. And they had it at Anaheim. There's lots of sports like this, but some do better than others. Some are pretty bad, actually. But this was a good one. It was bopping in there. Like they got the big like floaty duck flying around, just bumping it. They had this going for a bit, like probably 2 full minutes of these different mixes. So I was like Shazamming them, recording what the songs were. I saved them all, and that was like a big motivation. Like, I wonder if I could do something like this is my event, but I couldn't afford to like rent a big screen this year.
That's so sick. It's so cool.
It's so good. Instead, I bought some screens as part of the event budget for the gym, like an extra TV and stuff. But they have a permanent utility inside of the gym now, so my event budget helps with some equipment or things. So we use it as like an additional whiteboard screen. But it was good for the event because I had like some extra screens and made these videos. Like the week of, I was just figuring this out. I used some AI for renderings and things like that, but I layered in the sound effects and the music and like put them all together. When I was editing them, when I got the first one done, that looked pretty cool. I was tearing up, like out of it, like this, because it's sick. I'll show in part of it in a second. The way I created it was very similar to how it looks. It's similar to kind of the stuff I've seen at big screens at all these sports games that I've obsessed over my whole life. So to kind of realize that I'm doing like a small local version of that, I'm real about that. It's pretty exciting.
No, it's sweet. And again, it's like linking into that athlete experience, the hype. But even as a spectator, right? You're in there and you're like, whoa, you get excited for the athletes.
Yeah. And they're probably like, who did these? But it's the psychopath that doesn't sleep, just me. Like there's definitely people that help me with certain aspects. It's not like for me, in a way it is because I love to create a creative outlet, but I really want people to feel a certain way and have this fun experience that they remember with a friend or teammate. It's just that special bond when it's with someone else and others around you, but specifically the teammate stuff. There's so much more strategy and connection there. And my whole life and businesses revolves around that connection piece, which is why I don't care to ever do individual CrossFit competition, to run one or do one. I just love being around others. And that's just who I am and what I'm all about. So to give that, like this old guy, he's like my dad's age. He's not that old. He was bragging that he was one of the oldest ones there. So when I call him an old guy, it's not an insult. He was just like, I felt like a WWE fighter. I'm like, yes. Like, that's so cool that he felt and realized that. It's amazing. So this is when I had people walk out to it. Used to work for CFJC, the television channel, to take some drone footage because I wanted it to feel like kind of like the CrossFit game. And then when I figure out the speakers for next year, because this was like a 24-hour adventure to do the videos at the screen, watch out. So smoke machine and lights that you saw, like Jared and Sarah there for a second. Anyway, so this is one of the songs I heard in Anaheim. So I re-edited this over Chad's stuff.
That's so good.
If you have some questions about events, or just like if you're interested how I pulled a few things off and you don't care to run an event, hit me up. It's pretty fun to talk about, because even though it's only one day, it's not like or 2 days. It's not 2 days of work. It's months of work and thought. So now that we run the event in June, it really hangs over you for like a long time. All these little details, especially when you're so detail orientated, you're just thinking about it for a long time. So it's a very big relief, and it's like a hangover once it's over. But now there's lots of things I think about all the time. But now that I don't have July and August, which are my favorite months because it's summer, I kind of like running it in June instead of August. So that's probably here to stay.
Nice. So your events next year are
June 18, 19.
Yeah. I remember you
tentatively as of this recording.
Okay, next year is June 18, 19.
This is what I think I'm going to do. Because when I was setting up last week on Friday, I'm like, man, this is a ton of work to set up the space, and the space looks sick. It's a shame I'm only in here for one day. I'm going to see if I can rent it like a little bit longer so I can set up on Thursday, Friday, start at Mac Island at like 10 a.m. ish to give some travel buffer, and later start. for even locals. And then do 2 events or so, 10 to 3. And then like a break until 7 p.m. ish. Head back to TCSC because I do like showing our gym off. And there's something special about that standing room only, clang and bang box feel. And then do the heavier event there, partially for feel and aura and noise, but also partially for logistics on not having to move weight across town. And then go back to Mac Island for a full day Saturday and wrap up there. I think that would be the play. Bang.
That'd be epic. Well, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm so excited after just even like recapping this year and all the great things. And what we talked about is it seems like it takes, about 2 years to get really comfortable and really just like know what you have access to and the things you can do and stuff like that. 2 years is great kind of backbone knowledge. And then this third year is going to be just epic.
There's even little things like the rig. How close to the boards are you? How close to the other side? And the speakers are behind the curtain this year. Last year they were on the far right, just because they kind of come as we're setting up. Like, I think there's good, and then they set it up and leave. But then that was like on our finish line, so people were almost running into them. And then the speakers only push one way, so they're much better this year. Just little things like that. I think if you're ever running an event, like I take tons of notes as soon as it's done, and then you just reflect on them and pull them up when you're making the next year. And then less mistakes, but cooler stuff to implement. Bang.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. And yeah, if there's any other questions you have, I feel like you're just a wealth of knowledge of not only event management, how to run an event, and now you're getting into the details of like, well, what makes it sick and what makes it an epic athlete experience, which I think is really cool. So I'm excited for next year. I think that's a sweet recap. There's a wealth of knowledge of stuff we already recorded. So yeah, thanks for putting on such a great event. I wasn't there, but I'm sure your athletes really appreciate it. And I can't wait for next year.
Like your intro that you recorded, something about world class and whatever. Those are your words, not mine. I'm usually a bit more humble than that. But it was definitely a good event, I'll admit that. But there's limitations as a Kamloops guy that owns a gym. I know that. But I could push that limit. And it's a pretty cool expression of vision, but I have lots of people helping me. And I'm also, just because we haven't recorded in this segment, I'm very grateful for the volunteers that come. And the people come from out of town, and my own members that sign up too. It's the volunteers, I know they're happy to be there and they're just like being a part of it, but they do take up time out of their day to do it. And I'm not just lining my pockets with this, and I break even on it barely. So it's pretty cool that they're a passenger on that too.
Yeah, totally. We both are heading back to the CrossFit Games again for the third year.
To compete.
And we're excited for that. We have a huge group going, which will be really fun. And yeah, not to compete, just to participate and watch. But it's also a really cool, honestly, from the behind the scenes spectator experience going to an event like that. I think it's personally, if you're involved in CrossFit in any way, it's like one of the best events to go to because you get so much swag. There's so much opportunity to meet people in the CrossFit industry. And then again, you're just watching some of like the fittest people throw down. So it's an awesome experience. I'm excited for that. We're going to plan some more like media content, podcasts, behind the scenes, more stuff like that to come out. So that'll be fun and exciting as well.
Can I briefly tell? I should just say, do you remember when I did that affiliate owner tour I did last year? Remember? So affiliate owners could go down and do like a tour of the bowels of the arena. And so they had like a sign printing shop set up, like so the lane signs or numbers on the floor and stuff they could print on site. Rogue had like an entire warehouse in there. Like they have an unlimited budget from Rogue. And then the scoring and like they have all kind of like the war room set up, media, things like that. So the people that I were with were kind of like fanboying over like, oh, like we're Roman. I'm not starstruck by these people. I want to know how like the logistics worked. So I was asking all these kind of weird questions at the end. Not weird to me, but they have like that ski-erg calorie counter LCD screen. And I was asking like how they got those made and where you can get them. And I guess they're like customized somewhere. And they're like, why is he asking this stuff? And then I explained. Like a small middle of nowhere event runner, but I love these little details. So if I ever get my hands on something like that, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, you've pulled so much inspiration from so many different events and parts of your life that you just think are sweet. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And not just CrossFit. Who knew?
No, not just CrossFit either.
Going to NFL games would pay off.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's like resource resource income, basically. Well, I'm glad you're on your way to being rested and recovered. A big event and undertaking is off your chest. You can enjoy your summer a little bit, but we'll see you at the CrossFit Games. And we'll just keep chatting. If you like this podcast, you can follow Coach Kent Kamloops on Instagram, TCSC Kamloops on Instagram, and then also just give this podcast a follow. And then you'll be updated whenever we post anything new. Straight from Kobe himself. All right, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode. This is Iron Operations, hosted by Amy Tipper and Kent Aitchison. Today's episode was edited and produced by the team at AT Design Studios. If you like the show, hit subscribe and come find us on Instagram at TCSC Kamloops. We'll catch you on the next one. Class dismissed.